That
I had
helps.
been drinking since noon, didn't feel temperature, so...
Yeah, I think that's probably true, but that may just not be possible. I think the question here is, does Ferrari have to start downsizing their cylinders for EU regs? That's the world we live in.
NK, thoughts on a 2021 Range Rover Sport SVR with 10,000 miles? What other cars that Matt hates are actually good and should I buy?
Anything from the 60s.
Sure. Yeah. What up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. You know about Off the Record. We love Off the Record here. It is a motorist advocacy group. And if you get pulled over for any kind of moving violation, big or small, don't plead guilty. Get Off the Record. Go to offtherecord.com/TST or use code TST pod on the Off the Record app. They will fight that ticket for you and they will hopefully win. Get those points off your record. They have an amazing track record of this stuff, and you can get an off-the-record attorney in almost anywhere in the United States of America. Big violation, small violation, doesn't matter. Can affect your insurance, can affect your employment, can affect your bottom line is what I'm saying, or your right to drive, your driving privileges. So go to offtherecord.com/TST or use code TSTPOD on the Off the Record app. Either of those codes will give you 10% off any and all legal services booked through Off the Record. Don't take it from me. Take it from the thousands of people who have used Off the Record to get those points off your record and maintain clean driving privileges. Offtherecord.com/TST or code TSTPOD on the Off the Record app. Get an account, make it now so you're ready if the worst happens, and then you don't have to sweat it out. All right, on today's crew show, Zach and I talk about car dependency in the context of the Peter Nelson book Autonomy I've just finished on a trip to Spain, a place that is less car dependent than America. We also analyze what we know about the new Ferrari F80 hypercar and whether we think it's good or not. We also talk about the new 992.2 GT3 that has been released. And Zach got married this weekend and we just grazed on it last show, so we're talking a little more about that. Plus some really good questions from our patrons. Make sure you join in on that action at patreon.com/thesmokingtire. And of course, we've got new merch up in our store at thesmokingtireshop.com. Make sure you check that out. Fresh items just added. Let's do this cruise show. It's the Smoking Tire Podcast. Yellow.
We are here.
We are?
Yes.
Shit. I was really hoping to not be here.
You want to not be? Where do you want to be?
I don't know. But I woke up this morning to come in and it was dark and I was like, oh,
yeah.
It's the first time that's happened where I've had obviously it's every year days get shorter and whatever, but normally I get up at like 6:30 most mornings, and like today was the first one where I was like, I'm up and it's dark still.
Wait, did you wake up extra early or it was dark because the seasons?
It was dark because of the seasons,
okay.
But it's just, It's got in my head a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
When I woke up in Spain last week, it was dark until 8:15 a.m., and that one fucking threw me off. When you got a big time change to deal with, and then you have that going on also, it was like real fucked up.
Yeah.
Right. It is a cruise show today. We were supposed to have Simon Kidston join us from England, but we had some technical difficulties that need sorting, and so we'll have to get back with Simon.
Yeah.
He's all right because I like Simon a lot. He's cool. He's a guy with a fucking cool ass gig. This dude's rolling around 250 GTOs like a boss. Yeah, he's a heavy hitter. This one. He is one of the reasons that he's a well-off individual, but he's like if Harry Metcalf was like a car dealer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like he goes on like road trips in his 300 SL Roadster. He'll drive some 70s Ferrari, across Europe for, a cup of coffee kind of thing.
Uses the cars.
Yeah, like his daily in England is like a 1965 Rolls. I mean, it's boss level stuff. It's the kind of stuff where, you'd be like, if I was fucking rich,
right,
this is the kind of way I'd like to live.
Because not many people do that. Plenty of people have that kind of money, but they don't do that with their cars.
Yeah, and he's got like, a suitcase that matches each car and a fucking little dog that goes with him. It's a whole thing. It's a whole aesthetic. He's great. And he sells and restores a lot of very high-end cars. But there are many things to talk about. I mean, we only talked about your wedding for like 3 minutes yesterday, and that was a thing. That happened.
That was quite a thing.
Yeah, you're Mr. Stringfellow in the. You're gonna. We learned that Zach's gonna hyphenate his last name.
I am.
Yes, you are.
I am.
Oh, that's what Sarah said last night. She's
I thought
working
she was
on
hyphenating.
Someone's hyphenating. It might as well be you. I don't know.
Both have to hyphen, or does
no? It would be
Yeah.
her. It would. I mean, patriarchy dictates that it would.
That's
be,
right.
It would be her.
We're progressive, but I don't like paperwork, so we're not that progressive.
Although your parents, I think, would be more okay with most parents if you were like, I'm taking her last name. Your mom would be like, under this moon, that is acceptable.
When I was a kid and I was going to get like a passport, I think. I was like 6. I did not understand anything. And we were like writing my name on the form, and I said, can we change my middle name from Daniels to Daniel? Because I was like, I don't know anyone named Daniels. Daniel is the first name.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she was like, okay, and didn't change it. Because that's her parents' name.
Oh, your middle name is her maiden name?
Yeah.
Oh, she usually does that. That's the kind of, like, my mom changed her middle name to her maiden name. My mom went from Vivian Sue Davis to Vivian Davis Farah.
I don't know how
married.
middle names are normally handed down to
I mean, that's
kids.
like the OG, like, boomer way to do it.
Like my
how
brother's
parents...
middle names are different than mine. They come from my dad's side. I got my mom's side middle name. So
you got your dad's maiden name.
I got
no, that's a made-up thing. Men don't have maiden names.
I don't know. But, I guess Sarah's going to
Daniels, I mean, I understand the science, but, like, dropping the S probably would have made more sense in the context of how, like, name schemes work.
Yeah, but
you have a plural middle name.
But in hindsight, it's like how rude of me to like. Can I? Her parents came over.
Yeah. You
Ellis
didn't
Island,
understand the science.
Can we just rebrand that because I don't like it? Yeah, I didn't understand the science.
But you were accurately like that. Looks and sounds weird, which it fucking does.
It's a plural of a commonly singular name.
Yeah, is it plural or is it possessive?
Oh, I don't know.
Because it could be like Daniel's Clapman as opposed to David's Clapman.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's no apostrophe.
Right. Well, but I mean, yeah. That's. Oh, I almost said there's no punctuation in names except we were just talking about hyphens, so they're absolutely.
I think other languages there's.
Yeah, they have there's accents.
Not as much of a
right.
Not comma. What was the word?
Apostrophes.
Apostrophe. Thank
accent.
You. Yeah.
It's more of an accent.
Yeah.
Or an umlaut.
Umlaut. Love the
or
umlaut.
An enya, or what have you. A tilde is what it's, I think, called. I think the thing over enya
thing. Oh, yeah.
Is, I believe, is a tilde. Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, wedding.
But yeah, fun. Wedding. Very fun.
Very fun.
Respect for the Top Shelf Open Bar. That was all right.
I was like,
dollars well spent.
Like, we should have a good bar. And I was like, hey, I will support that.
Dollars well spent.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jillian was their best customer.
Was she the... I don't want to... I've heard someone overindulged and returned some of the liquids that they had imbibed.
Jillian puked.
There we go.
not like on anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't like messy, but she did puke.
Oh, we heard it was 2 people, and we weren't sure it was Gibran or Jillian. So I was curious. Who
I don't think it was Gibran. No, I think it was Jillian.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm glad she had fun.
Yeah,
Jillian's rad.
Yeah, I mean there was. There was a lot of top. It was so much so that apparently the bar told her, like, the bartender was like, "You are shit faced."
Really?
Yeah.
Can you get cut off at a wedding if you're not?
I mean, you probably could, but it's not likely.
It's more of a safety issue, but that's really funny.
Yeah.
Well, the bartender there was like the company's head bartender, which was nice. So he created all of our things, and
Oh, I did have I had whatever the old fashioned was. That was good.
That was just like a traditional old fashioned.
Yeah. It was good. Well executed. And then I was like, this is going to go bad if I don't stick to clear liquor. And so it was Tito's and soda for me pretty much all night.
My drink was the gin, cucumber, rosemary, something or other. Like that's up my alley all the time.
That sounds sounds good.
I drank like 4 of those.
Yeah.
I didn't get drunk. I was buzzing the right amount. But,
that's good. I mean, if you're the groom, it's pretty hard to get that drunk. Because you just can't get away to the bar.
True.
You've always got something like people are going to bring you drinks, but you've just always got something going on.
It was like an assembly line.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's very hard.
And everyone, you said this, everyone who's been married was like, that's what it is. Like, I felt like talent.
Yeah.
We need you here. We need you here. But that was only for about 2 hours. It was that, and then it was like, all right, you're released. Just do what you want.
Yeah. After like 9 p.m. You know, once dinner's done, then you do your walks around all the tables and get all the photos. After that, you're pretty much good.
And our wedding coordinator, it was absolutely awesome. Mel from XOXO Weddings, if you're in California, like fucking champion. But we assembly lined the photos as fast as humanly possible, and that's great because then I wanted to just go talk to people.
The photos are fucking annoying. I mean, it's. I mean, you gotta have them.
You gotta have them.
What you really want are like 5 photos. You know what I mean? Like you have to have like hundreds of photos, like every possible group, combination, whatever. But like the ones that will matter to you are gonna. There's like 5 from the wedding that'll be somewhere in your house,
totally.
You know, or like on some permanent online portal or whatever. It's like there's the big group one with the friends. There's the walking down the aisle one or the kiss one. There's the first dance one, maybe a parent dance, and then the rest are like whatever.
The rest, I hope they just got fun, candid stuff of people doing things. You know, because we didn't, we were flying around at such high speed and your brain's going so fast. And like I forgot there was a photo booth because I was only over there for 2 minutes. I didn't go in it at all, but... Like, were people in there? I don't know. Good. I
came home with one of them strip things, so I was in there at least once. Yeah. It was excellent. It was an excellent wedding. Good weather. Super fun. Perfect for an outdoor wedding. The last minute call for the heaters was a good call.
Yeah.
I didn't notice, but Hannah was all like, you went over to the cold side of the wedding for like a while, and I had to stay over here. I was like, well... I was shit-faced and didn't feel temperature, so
that definitely
I had
helps.
been drinking since noon.
Yeah, you had the choice between use the heaters, dance, or
keep drinking,
or keep drinking.
Yeah, keep drinking.
Or use the blankets or something.
It was very good. And then there was warnings about that you gave us about the sort of like. Formalities isn't the right word, but there was some things. The venue was beautiful, but there were some things that you were like concerned they were a little uptight about. That in practice, it didn't actually seem to matter that much at all.
It didn't. They just. I think it was on my mind because they have a lot of rules, and we didn't bend any of them, and we didn't need to. But it was just like it was on my brain.
Yeah.
But that's but it ended at 10 because that's like there's noise limits in CME for amplified music.
Oh.
But honestly, I don't know what you would have gained by going an hour more or anything. I don't think you needed it.
No, probably not. I mean, it started early enough that it was still plenty of wedding.
Everyone
I can't
was getting too drunk.
who could hear fucking music. I mean, it's one thing if a band was playing, but like...
I think it's just the city-wide rule.
Yeah.
And it just applies to... It doesn't matter how much amplification.
Yeah.
It's like any amplification.
That rule is definitely targeted at a certain genre of people, for sure.
Oh, maybe.
In Simi, that rule is absolutely... That's like, no cruising. Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Who's that designed to stop?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a sleepy town, though. I mean, you asked, like, Corey. He goes, yeah, you can't really go out to dinner after 8 p.m.
Yeah, it's definitely...
Yeah.
I almost called it a sundown community, but it's basically like that.
But it was, gorgeous place. So much fun.
Yeah,
and watching
very nature.
Our friends from different groups interact was really, really fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the car people and then the Burning Man people together was very funny. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, Zach has a lot of friends I don't know.
Yeah. So funny. I think groomsmen always do this. Like one of my other friends is like, if that bridesmaid's ever single, let me know. But like her husband was at the wedding, and I guess my friend was talking to her a lot, and the husband was like, "Do I need to worry about how you guys are getting along?" And my friend's like, "No, like let's go to the bar. I'm harmless. Just I'm not." He wasn't trying to move in on anything. Yeah. They were just joking around a lot. But
that's pretty funny. Yeah, so it was great. Congrats,
super fun.
Married. And now it'll just be like it was on Friday.
That's what it's the same. That's what almost everybody says.
Yeah. Then it just goes back to being exactly the same.
Yeah.
Except you file taxes together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cars. Guys, we got to take a quick break from the show for Delete Me. I have gotten my account going on Delete Me. I joined Delete Me because I want to stop some of these robocalls, right? Now, you probably know someone who, or maybe you have been a victim of identity theft or harassment, stalking, doxing, etc. Privacy is important. And for me, when privacy problems hit me was the phone. Right, the robocalls, the robo-texts, the phone scams, they're always calling, and I wanted that to stop. That's why I got Delete Me, right? I'm super aware of this, and if these people can get my phone number, who else can, right? Data brokers are compiling that information that you put out there, right? Online shopping or applying for stuff, they sell your data to data brokers, and then they sell it online, right? So I signed up and provided Delete Me with all this information, right? Anything I wanted gone. My address, my phone number, my email, variations on how my name could be written, my birthday, my wife's name, my family's name, addresses that I used to live at, cars I've owned, etc., etc. And then Delete Me goes to work. Their experts take it from there. They send you regular personalized privacy reports showing what they found and where they found it and what was removed. And Delete Me is not just a one-time service. It's always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. When I got my first report back from Delete Me, it found over 1,000 instances of my personal information on data broker websites. Now, fortunately, almost all of it was old and outdated, meaning it's addresses I used to live at, jobs I used to have, things like that. But still, we don't need that out there. So they've been going to work deleting that stuff. And actually, in the last week or two, the robocalls have really, really reduced, and hopefully they'll continue to reduce. So you can do it too. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/tire and use promo code TIRE at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/tire and enter code TIRE at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/tire and enter code TIRE at checkout. Now, back to the show. While we were out, there were cars. I went to Spain to drive cars I can't talk about until the embargo was like way later. But I mean, Spain, again, the best. Great roads. I mean, really amazing roads. We were up by Montserrat, which is apparently a famous mountain that looks real crazy.
How do you even spell that?
Montserrat.
It might just do it.
The corrected spelling.
Yeah, it's 6, is it?
Yes. No, that's not it.
No, that's not it. That's in the ocean.
That's an island in the ocean.
Oh, there's a place called...
Is Serrat, mountain. That's the one. Yeah. It looks pretty crazy. There's a town right at the base. That's cool. That was an abbey, a monastery that's built up on top of the fucking mountain.
Wow.
Yeah, but the roads around there, quite good. But like going to Europe, and I just finished a book called Autonomy, by a guy named Peter Nelson, recommended to me by David Zipper. And Autonomy is about the essentially false promise of autonomous driving. and how basically every promise that has been made in the last few years about autonomous driving has been made before. And they keep pitching.
How long before?
About every 20 years going back to the 30s.
Okay.
Every time a new type of technology is invested, car companies and those invested in our car-dependent society come out and say, well, this is the technology that's finally going to make the car fast, safe, clean, and efficient, right? So first it was when, like, vacuum tube circuits, like the earliest version of circuits came out. It was going to be this. This is how we're going to have safer, smarter, higher tech, cleaner cars. Then it was the transistor. When the transistor came out, it was now we've got the tech. We can do smart roads, smart highways, and the cars will just follow almost like slot cars. And the cars will follow these magnetic strips in the road, and you'll just put in your destination and the car will just take you there. And then later it was, well, now we've got a computer that fits in a car, and we've invented GPS, and now we've got traction control. So now we finally are going to have cars that are, reducing accidents and cleaner and
But isn't
safer.
that all true? I mean, we've got the cars are cleaner, they're faster, the accidents have gone down.
Yes, but the number of accidents has not gone down.
Well, there's more cars on the road, but
Right. Well, so that's the thing is the number of deaths
Okay.
has not gone down. The number of highway deaths has not gone down.
What if you adjusted for population growth and all this other things?
Well, so if you adjust for population growth, yes, but the absolute number of deaths on highways, which were considered totally unacceptable in the 1930s, has gone down per person, but we still have 30 to 40,000 highway deaths, and they keep promising.
Right. I mean, I think if the number of accidents per number of people on the road either goes down, or the number of fatalities go down, or injuries go down, then we do have safer cars technically.
No, and no one is saying that we don't have safer cars.
Okay.
That a car built today is not safer than a car.
Okay.
But by continuing to promise that the future of a crash-proof, death-proof, emissions-free car is just right around the corner, as opposed to we could have trains. We could have public transportation. We could have walkable cities that prioritize pedestrian safety versus vehicle speed through an area. We don't need new technology to reduce those deaths. We don't need new technology to improve our air quality. We don't need, you know what I mean? The point is each of these new jumps in technology gives a new reason for automakers and people who are pro-car dependent society to push the narrative that is the right way forward.
Right. So you keep people driving by saying just around the corner is perfection.
Just around the corner, we have perfected this system to where it will be clean, cheap, and perfectly safe. And
it's like an oil company ad where they're like, we're working on, they have green tech and they have people looking at clipboards, and meanwhile they're lobbying again. Okay.
And so because the book was written in 2021, I thought, 2021 to 2024, and it's a book about autonomy, it's going to be outdated. But because it's basically the entire history of this false promise going all the way back to the 1930s, and almost nothing significant has changed in autonomy from 2021 to now. I mean, yes, there's a few more Waymos on the road.
Right, but they were already testing back then.
They were already testing.
I'm sure they've iterated a lot and they've improved their software.
Right, but there's no significant change in position.
No one has rethought the system of autonomous driving.
Right.
Waymo, they look the same, basically.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so some of them don't have a safety driver in the driver's seat, and that's impressive. Okay, cool. But it's not. They've not remade the landscape. No one's selling one. So anyway, I read that book on the way to and from Spain on the plane, and so to read a book about car dependency. And then three-quarters of the way through it, find myself in Europe in a small city called Sitges, Sitges, outside of Barcelona, that is not a car-dependent city. It goes back to like the 1600s. And yes, there are cars. And yes, people have houses and driveways with garages and whatever. And there's a highway that does run alongside it, and you can get to places in and out of there by car. It is not a car-dependent city, and by that what I mean is about a third of this town, particularly the old town, is closed off to cars entirely, pedestrian only. You can get a scooter through there, but basically pedestrian only. And that's where all the high-end shopping is. The fucking iZod store, the Apple store, like they didn't have like, it wasn't like, you know, Tiffany and Rolex, but it was like the highest end shopping that they have, the best restaurants that they have, the best bars that they have, the best stuff where people go were on walk streets that were wide enough for a car, but were car free.
Right.
And there was a train station right in the middle of town, could take you straight to Barcelona. There was a variety of small, like, public transit buses. And I spent, you know, all day walking around this city the day I wasn't driving. And then to come back to L.A. after reading this book and, like, just be, like, in so much traffic the day I got home.
But did that little city have, like, any kind of industry or... basically, I'm thinking it'd be cool to interview people that live in towns and cities of various sizes in different countries and see, like, do they want for things that they wish they had there? Because I think an aspect of America is we have almost endless choice, and we like that. But to do that requires a large system to deliver all of our wants and cater to those things. So, like, LA is going to have traffic because it's got 15 different giant industries and all these people. So if this town is more of like
this town is smaller, but how many European cities have you been to that are similar? I've been to a dozen European cities that are
for sure.
Yeah, they just haven't prioritized car transport over, and you don't need to, like, ban cars. Except for maybe a couple streets and maybe during certain hours of the day. You don't need to ban cars. And you don't need to price cars out of existence. The argument is that what we're doing as a society is subsidizing cars, which we are doing. We're prioritizing cars in a million different ways at the expense of other modes of transportation.
Totally.
They're all choices. Right, so by subsidizing cars and what they do is by making cars the only choice for a lot of people, they then note that by they I mean both policymakers, automakers, marketers, etc. They prioritize cars. They make it so you really can't live an adult life in a lot of ways in many places in our country without a car, and then they use the fact that people then go and buy cars to say, well, people's preference is cars. So they give them really only one choice. Right. People take the thing that they're going to need to live, and then they go, see, they want to be in cars. It's like, well, you're not looking in places where there's alternatives, and if you provide alternatives, and you don't even have to necessarily subsidize the alternatives. You just have to, like, not subsidize the cars. Like, these systems can literally, like, work themselves out if you make the choice to, like, have choices.
Yeah, totally. I mean, here they've been working on this high-speed rail in California for 10 years or something. And, like, I know Elon got in the way for a little while, but it's been a decade, and there's so much money been spent, and they still haven't connected it. And, like, if you gave people that choice, fewer people would drive on I-5.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not like – it seems like it's a lost cause in a lot of places because it's like, well, what are you going to do? The city's built. But, like, the city was built when they put the highways there. Like, they bulldozed fucking highways.
Right.
Or, excuse me, they bulldozed apartment buildings and, quote, slums intentionally. They made choices where to put those highways, and there's quotes in the book from back in the 30s when they were doing or 40s when they were doing the Interstate Highway Act by saying, like, we can remove blighted areas, meaning areas where poor people lived, by putting highways there. So, like, the choice was made already. So it's not too late to make a different choice. And it was like, it's hard. I love cars. good cars, but I like moving in the cars. And if there were like other ways to get around that were more effective and efficient, like I might take them. And like you don't have to force people out of cars because there's so many people driving cars that would rather not be driving a car. And like if you gave them other options, they would take those options. And then the people who do want to drive a car would have less people on the road.
Right. I agree with you completely.
It's better for everybody.
Yeah.
So it was just like to read this book about a society that's been set up to depend on cars while going to a place that isn't and then coming back to a place that is, it was like so clear.
Yeah, you had visual aids basically.
It was so
for
clear.
Your lesson plan.
Yeah. It was wild. It's a very good book. It's not a scientific read. You don't need to be a super nerd to read it. I mean, GM has been like one of the worst offenders throughout history of like promising shit like this. But other car companies as well. And obviously the most recent is Tesla and their bullshit. But and it doesn't mean that
I think technologically we are closer than ever. It's the same thing like in the 40s, someone probably dreamed of going to space. And it was like, and it didn't happen for 25 more years. And then, like people dream and technology advances. I mean, Da Vinci, helicopter, da-da-da-da. But I totally get what you're saying. Like we're still a greater distance away from perfect autonomous cars than we think we're told we are.
Right.
And it also doesn't solve the problems of traffic congestion, emissions, all that other stuff.
And there's absolutely no evidence that autonomous cars will reduce fatalities. I mean, there's literally no evidence to show that.
Well, is that because they don't exist yet?
Yeah,
really?
Like I'm not saying that there couldn't one day be evidence, but this is being pushed on a promise of safety. And so far, there is no evidence of that, particularly when, for the foreseeable decades, you have to mix autonomous cars with human-driven cars. There's absolutely no proof at all. So they're pitching this as it's going to get safer, it's going to get safer, it's going to get safer. Meanwhile, it's not getting safer. And meanwhile, while yes, an autonomous car might not get drunk, might not get tired, might not have emotions that could result in it doing some dangerous shit. There's 100 other things an autonomous car might do that a human driver would never do. And there's in this book, there's a real interesting chapter on the things that an autonomous car might do that a human might never do. And there's this discussion about if you built an autonomous car that obeyed the letter of the law perfectly, people wouldn't want it. It wouldn't be a good driving experience. It wouldn't be smooth. It would be slow. It would be very conservative. It might stop all the time and freak out and like.
Well, it shouldn't. I mean,
like if you got
that's not a good one.
Huh?
I said then that's not a good system.
If you got in an Uber, human-driven Uber, and that person obeyed every single rule of the law to the letter, you probably wouldn't have a good Uber experience. It would probably feel like they were driving really slow, really conservatively. You know what I mean? It's like it's not something we think about, but we don't actually want a person or a computer to drive perfectly with the letter of the law. They'd seem like a rolling roadblock.
I mean, the only time I can think of that actually being an issue is if you're on the highway and the car goes 65 and everyone else is going 74.
Yeah.
But in town or something, I mean, I've been with Uber and taxi drivers that are too bold or bold, and I've been with drivers that they're like, I'm keeping my license forever. This is my job, and they drive very gently, and it's slow and boring, but it also is not really a problem.
Right, but the research quoted in this book seemed to indicate that people who had ridden in various forms of driverless taxi or who had taken surveys about their desires had indicated that if it was driving too conservatively, that would not be an enjoyable experience that people would pay for.
I mean, I can understand, especially if you're an active passenger, meaning like you're watching what the car or the driver's doing.
Yeah.
And they don't do what you would do.
Yeah.
I mean, that frustrates humans in any topic. So if a car is going to parallel park and the autonomous car stops behind them and just waits for them to park.
Yeah.
Whereas you might go, well, you could go around. That lane's empty.
Well, that's exactly the
right.
thing. Yeah, like maybe they don't go cross the double yellow even though someone's double parked here or whatever.
That's a good point.
And so that could lead to manufacturers of AVs strategically loosening the permissions until the car was breaking laws and statistically more dangerous because it was breaking certain laws, but it offered an experience that the rider found to be better. You know, up to a point, and this is just me observing myself. Up to a point, if I take an Uber or a taxi, and the driver isn't, I'm not talking about reckless, but if the driver is like driving in ways that might push legal boundaries a little bit so that I get somewhere on time, I consider that to be an elevated experience. And I realize the contradiction there, but
Right. Well,
that's just how I feel.
But then I would say we would go back to the safety discussion, because we've both been in taxis, Uber rides, whatever, where I guess they're processing with their eyes what's ahead. They don't see pedestrians, maybe, whatever. But I've definitely been in Ubers where the guy's going 15 over because he wants to make good time.
Yeah.
And sure, I make good time. But if someone stepped out of the darkness in that moment, they are hitting that person.
Uh-huh.
So then we go back to the human driver error situation. And it's really just like, is neither system going to be perfect ever, human or computer? And they're both. And right now, human is far ahead of computer.
Right. It seems unlikely, unless you have a world in which no weird things could happen. You'd have to ban all human-driven cars. You'd have to keep pedestrians physically separate from roadways. You'd have to basically turn all. The book goes far back enough to go to the invention of highways. I mean, the invention of the highway, single lane travel, divided, that was going to be the savior, because at that time, almost all incidents were of perpendicular cross traffic.
Oh.
So they're like, we'll just eliminate cross traffic. So that was going to be the thing that made, and so they built all these fucking highways. And that just made more people drive and move further out in the sprawl because it made driving easier. But it didn't reduce deaths. They just got different kinds of deaths.
Right.
It's like they keep doing these things going, this is the one where we're going to reduce the deaths, but they never reduce the deaths. And yes, they have reduced deaths probably per capita. Probably, but they've not reduced the number of deaths on the roadway to below the number that in the 30s they thought was like murder on the roads, and in the meantime,
that's just because we get used to anything. I mean, catastrophes. If you keep seeing them.
So but also there's like 20 times the number of cars, which has creates more traffic and creates more this and creates more sprawl and creates more emissions and creates more everything. But it's all just in service of the book positions. Cars is really the ultimate consumer device. Because it's a big, expensive, complicated thing that we as people have been programmed, and I'm not better than this, have been programmed to always want the new one. I mean, it was about keep the consumer. This was a GM thing from back in the day. Keep the consumer perpetually dissatisfied. Meaning that's why GM in like the 50s would they'd facelift the car every year. So you'd always want the new one, even though underneath it was the same fucking car for like 12 years, that kind of thing. So they always want you to think that the next one is going to be the one. The next one's going to be the one. And that strategy has worked for so long and the regulation of it is so bad, and our society is positioned in such a fucked up way to prioritize it that's how you end up with, last week's robo-taxi trash. Mm-hmm. Because that is the sort of apex of the future that is promised us every 25 years or so. And it used to be called, GM had a festival for it. It was called Futurama, which is where the TV show name came
Right.
from. There was Motorama and then Futurama. And Autonorama is a take on that because it's literally like every 25 years they keep saying the future is now, and it's GM cars or Tesla cars or whatever that are going to give you this utopian future that you want, where no one dies on the roads, no one sits in traffic, there's no emissions, and it's AI. AI is here and it's
AI
going to
is
do
something,
it.
yeah.
So it's every time it's the vacuum tube, it's the transistor, it's smart highways, it's fucking CPUs, and they just keep going. Here it is, here it is, here it is. Buy another car. Instead of paint lines on the road differently, or here's a train, here's a bus.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, their practice of the next thing is just around the corner or is here is like that's advertising 101 now for every product, and that's
Right.
not a good thing. It's interesting that I don't know if they created it, but it's obviously super effective. Like the
and
iPhone 16. You got to get it. I mean, any product. Yeah.
And humans don't have very good memories. So just about the time that people forget that the promises of the last one were never fulfilled at all, like not even close, they go, "We've got it. This time we're really doing it." And it's just the same bullshit again. It's hilarious, and we're all idiots.
Well, it's weird. It's like it's weird because technology is advancing.
Yes,
but is it like should we be excited about its advancement, or should we be dissatisfied that it's not where it's promised that it's going to be?
Well, we should be
that's an interesting
dissatisfied
mental
because the
exercise.
thing that they promised the tech would do for us, it's not going to do. It hasn't done, and it's not going to do. The thing that we actually want, fewer deaths, cleaner air, less traffic, would be solved with technology that already exists.
Right. Yeah.
Does
Just
not
electric
nothing
train
new?
with
Nothing
renewable
new
energy.
needs to be
Yeah.
invented. We
Yeah.
just need to make different choices at the policy level.
True. I think, but they go, well, if people want their cars or they've been tricked to want their cars
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, how do we reduce deaths, emissions, those things with those cars? Emissions are down.
Right, but they could just stop doing the bad thing, which is convincing people that car dependency is the way to this utopia.
Right, they
isn't.
could, but no car company is going to do that.
No,
Yeah.
they're not. But that's why we need fucking the government to do it. But the government has been bought by the car companies.
Right. Well, every industry, yeah.
Yeah, but like that's
Yeah.
you there are places in the world
True.
that have. That's why going to Spain and reading this was such a fucking pain in the ass, because there are places that don't have this, where they made different decisions. I mean, Amsterdam, great example, fucking great place. And by the way, car ownership there is almost as high as it is in America, the rate of car ownership. People own cars, people love cars, and people love driving in Holland. It was rated as one of the happiest places to drive a car. But also they prioritized cycling and street cars and other forms of transit in the city center. And so even people who own cars use their cars a lot less because they have other options, and they use the cars more to get to other cities and less for local trips because they have prioritized other methods.
I was Googling if lobbying is legal in which countries it's legal in, because that obviously would have a huge effect on things, but I can't find.
That's a very complicated thing to try to fucking
in
find
5 seconds,
in
exactly.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, you don't have to agree with me if you really, 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 really think that everyone having their own car is the way forward. You can disagree with me. That's fine. Leave a comment. But I thought it was a good book. And apparently this guy's other book, which is called Fighting Traffic, is even better. And I'm going to start that one now.
Yeah, I think if it's people should look at what your goal is for a day in terms of like, where do you want to get to? And then sometimes a car is the best solution, but sometimes a train or a subway is the best solution. And instead of like, well, I want to be able to sit and have my music, which you can do in a train. I mean, there's a lot of things where you like look at what your objective is, and then you can figure out the best solution for it instead of being told that the best solution will apply to any objective.
Yeah. But like people, you know, there are posters and advertisements and stuff for these Futurama things that are saying self-driving cars will be here in 20 years. In the 30s, in the 50s, in the 70s, it was self-driving cars will be here in 20 years.
Can you imagine seeing that? I mean, I guess hindsight and all that stuff. Like if we got in a time machine and went back to the 30s and they're like, self-driving cars will be here, and you'd be like, with what system?
Yeah.
What gear and pulley thing are you going to have?
No, but
that's going to control everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was
wild.
They were talking about putting magnetic strips in the road that your car would then, you know, track onto.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and
which is hilarious because it's, you know, I guess it's a voluntary train. It gets on there, it gets on a train line, and then it gets off. That's kind
pretty
of
much, yeah. And actually, in a lot of the systems, it was actually kind of neat. It was like you would drive on the surface streets, and then you would hook onto the thing, and it would on the highway. I was like, well, okay. And if you didn't have a scientific mind of the day, you know, you're a regular fucking Joe. You go, oh, okay, they could make that into something that works in exactly the same way that people today are like, you just don't understand. This is going to work. We make this work. And you go, well, I'm not a software engineer, so like maybe, I don't know. And like, but there's still so many fucking holes in it. There's so many holes in it.
And I understand why that is. I don't want to say effective. It's not like a trick. Like there are people who have a specialty and the rest of us who don't. And they go, here's your life jacket. And you're like, I didn't make the life jacket. I trust that the person who made the life jacket knows how to make life jackets. Usually it works.
Yeah.
Airplane, engineering, all that stuff. So,
but there is so much money to be made in bullshitting your way through pretending you are about to have an autonomous car. You can get so rich if you can convince people that in 10 years, it doesn't need to work today. If you convince people that you're
4 years ago, 5 years ago, I mean, when autonomy became it was the investment topic of whatever 2 years.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it just, I mean, that whole pool drained.
Right.
And everything got pulled and so many companies shut down. But for a while, it was everyone's throwing $1 billion at any
And now it's
company.
AI. And they think that AI and autonomy can go hand in hand when if you know the fucking littlest bit about either of those things, that's not how either of those systems work at all.
I mean, well, AI is like a rebrand of just computer.
Yeah, well,
thinking.
most AI is is a complete
and now it's a
bullshit.
buzzword.
It doesn't actually mean that. There's no actual intelligence there. It's just like, oh, you can scour the internet faster than any human alive and summarize it.
Right.
All right, cool. But that ain't driving. And let me tell you something. Landing a fucking airplane or a rocket, that ain't driving either. There's no fucking pedestrian pushing a cart across the runway. You know, like it's not impressive, but it ain't driving. It's a different thing. If I was like, yo, I am a virtuoso on the saxophone. I can fucking rip through Beethoven's Seventh with my eyes closed after only hearing it once. And you go, well, if you did that, that's so impressive. You must be able to make a watch because what you did was so impressive there.
Right.
They have nothing to do with each other. Nothing.
And even closer, I'd be like, you must be amazing at guitar.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's going to take me a minute because the action is totally different.
Yeah. Like these are just not the same skills that people are like, well, that's hard and smart people had to do it. So, and someone somewhere said that they would never do it and they did it. So they must be able to do anything. No.
That is a flaw of the human brain.
Yeah.
Is you've done this, therefore I trust you to do other things.
Yeah.
And that's how so many
people think that about
become
themselves.
Leaders. Sure.
People think like, oh shit, I was so good at basketball. I must be great at running a Chevy dealership. You don't want to buy a Blazer from John Elway Chevrolet?
I mean, I think his dealership network's quite successful.
I think it is, but he probably leaves it alone.
Right.
But,
you let other people do it. I mean, then you're just the advertising. That's all that is.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not you can actually run the business, who knows?
Yeah. But it's just these are not the same skills.
It's just there's a lot of variables with cars. Yeah.
Yeah. And people like to pretend that they're easy to solve, and they're not. So there was that. What the fuck else is going on? Ferrari launched a new hypercar.
F80.
F80.
Right?
It's important to name your hypercars after chassis codes of BMW M3s. That's good branding. Real good SEO on that. I saw the car and I heard this video.
You see it in person?
No,
Oh, okay.
did not see it in person. I saw this and I heard the video that it's up there, and boy, does it not do anything for me. Does this car do anything for you, Zach?
I want to see it in person. My initial reaction is not very excited, just because I don't know. I feel like they have so many pretty cars right now, and I don't think this is one of them. Like, so that's a big thing for me is just, do I like the way it looks?
Yeah,
that's like always my first go-to with a car, and this one just seems really busy compared to like the 296 is such a clean shape, right? Or even the Roma,
the Daytona SP3
really
is such a clean shape too.
So I don't know if this is more like, AMG 1 science experiment. It needs all these systems and vents and wings to function, and they're going for maximum attack speed. Like the black at the front of the bumper, I think looks a little bit weird.
It does.
And obviously you can get that in different colors when you pay the money for it. But I don't know. And then performance-wise, it's not really Ferrari's fault, because there are a lot of really fast hypercars out there that go, all right, they're going to have electric motors and they're going to have, turbocharged engines and stuff. And what does it has to deliver? I think what's hard is does it deliver something different? And it's not like Ferrari wants to be different from company A and company B and company C. But if you don't have the V12 sound, so you lose that, and you're just delivering twin turbo V6 with front electric motors, then how do people separate, from other cars? Yeah,
I mean, this formula, it's somehow like worse than the SF90. Like the SF90 had the twin turbo V8,
right,
with front motors, and that wasn't great.
Well, what do we not like about that? I mean, the SF90 for me,
it was heavy.
It was very heavy.
It didn't
look different enough.
Yeah.
That was one of the big issues.
Yeah.
So this definitely, people will see it and they go, "Oh, you spent the $2 million."
Yes.
But if it feels, I don't know if it'll be lighter than SF90 or if it will feel just as heavy.
It certainly should be lighter than SF90, but when I saw the Daytona SP3, I was like, oh, that's a gorgeous shape.
Yeah.
It's got some retro and some future. It looks like it was designed by someone's hand.
Right.
This car looks like they put it into fucking AI.
Yeah,
this looks like a Chat GPT designed hypercar. Like there's nothing about that car. Take off the badge, right? And the giant Scuderia shield on the side of it. There's very little about that to me that says Ferrari.
I feel like the back wheel arch and fender hump looks a little bit reminiscent of 296, but otherwise I agree. It all just looks so different.
That lower side scoop that's blacked out there looks like a Murcielago.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's huge too.
Yeah, it just visually does absolutely nothing for me. And then I heard it go by in the clip in the drive by, and it doesn't sound like anything either. It sounds like a 296. I mean, I'm sure there's something different, but look at the SP3. I mean, that is a gorgeous design. It's got curves. Mm-hmm. It's got just the right amount of throwback.
Like this whole back is just perfect.
That the front end really works, particularly if you've seen a P34 or something from the 60s. It's a very cohesive design. Plus, it's got a naturally aspirated V12, which for that kind of money, I think customers have spoken. And for these 7-figure price tags, they want, the kind of engines that are not going into the regular cars.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, but that may just not be possible. I think the question here is, does Ferrari have to start downsizing their cylinders for EU regs? That's the world we live in. So, they can't deliver that anymore. We can want that all we want. But can
they
did
just come out with the 12, the
cylindric.
Yeah.
But maybe someone in the industry can speak to this, but if they have a certain number, if they have an emissions count of 100, and they just spent 85 of it on that V12, they went, all right, our front engine car is known. I mean, that's where they began, front engine V12 cars. So if that's their flagship V12, and if the hypercars, they can shrink the package, they can make the engine smaller, they can move the the center of gravity more toward the middle even better, and they can add the front wheel drive electric motor system so the launch is better and it keeps up with whatever. Then they made that choice. I don't know.
They'll probably sell them all. I mean, Ferrari customers are hilarious. They'll buy literally anything as long as they get invited to buy the next thing.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll buy like actual garbage. I mean, it's amazing to me what you could convince either. I mean, and this is not exclusive. Lambo, Porsche, same thing. They'll buy fucking anything as long as they keep the keys to the kingdom going for the next thing.
And look, we are not the target market for this. I mean, we're car enthusiasts. Obviously, used to drool over supercars, hypercars all the time. It may just be that it's saturated. I mean, there are so many companies beyond the flagship 4 that used to make hypercars that now make them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition. And like you said, when the recipe of this is front electric motor, hybrid system, twin turbo V6, we go, well, we have that in the Artura, basically. And the Corvette E-Ray, not far off from that. I understand they're in different markets, but it's no longer a totally unique powertrain that you can't obtain unless you spend $2 million, right?
That's why Gordon Murray and anyone who's doing a Bugatti with this 16-cylinder thing, even though there is a hybrid system there, I mean, an NA 16-cylinder is going to produce a sound that you can't get anywhere else.
Right. It's what is the experience? And so if the experience used to be the feeling of driving the car and people recognize it, plus the sound, plus the performance. And the more money you spent, the more all of those experiences got turned up towards 10 or 11. And now, if the sound is the same as the 296, so that experience is now a wash. And if the performance, I mean, hopefully this is way fucking faster. Like, you need to really separate those things.
But on the street, what's the difference between 850 and 1,200 horsepower? Nothing.
Right, true. So now on the street, it's really, I mean, it has been for a long time. It's about recognition. I'm driving the $2 million one. You have the $500,000 one. And I don't think that will ever go away because the people that can spend this kind of money, like, you're buying that sort of advertisement, and that will always be there.
Yeah.
But I think you are losing the tactile aspects of the experiences.
Yeah, I agree. But like LaFerrari, the idea of it being a hybrid, it didn't really do much for me, but I can't argue that it's a gorgeous car, and to see one in person is a real visual impact.
Right.
The Daytona, even better. Drop the hybrid, NA V12. Who gives a shit? How much power does it make? I don't care. It's a fucking difference. A bunch. It makes enough. It's a naturally aspirated V12. It's exactly what I want out of that car. I don't care if it's 700 or 800 or whatever.
I mean, it's like an 812.
Yeah.
Basically that.
Great. Fine. Yeah. But to go from an NA12 to a twin turbo 6 with 3 electric motors, like, wah, wah.
I think you and I are in a fortunate position, and where because we've driven so many things, we get to come out that other side and go, more horsepower is not always better.
No.
It hasn't been for a while. But I think a lot of people, general car enthusiasts, they just look at that number, and if you put out, if the new whatever it's called, F80 had 100 less horsepower than the competition, people on the internet would go, why would you buy this? It has less power. They're very simple. It's very quantifiable, and Ferrari probably knows that. Like, you have to keep up, and that's the perpetual horsepower problem.
Yeah, so we're gonna end up with worse cars. Wah wah.
Yeah.
And there's a new GT3. 992.2 GT3.
And it's expensive.
Yeah, it's $53,000 more. That one was predictable.
Yeah.
Porsche went, It's the same thing. There was a quote from a Rolex dealer that was from maybe 2 years ago, and he basically said, if I allocate my customer a stainless steel Daytona, I'm basically handing them a check for $20,000 because we sell this at retail, and you could take it. And there's nothing stopping you from the next day selling it and making a $20,000 profit. So every time I sell one of these to somebody, I'm handing them $20,000, which is, that's their experience. And they're not wrong.
Yeah.
And so same thing with fucking GT3s.
True.
If every GT3 out the door at retail is handing the customer a check, either handing the customer a check for 20 or 30 grand because they could flip it, or handing the dealer a check for 20 or 30 grand because they can put ADM on it, then why does, Porsche, the company, not want their cut?
Yeah, I mean, this will help Porsche profit hugely, and they're semi-public now, so I'm sure there were discussions like the cars we're selling for $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and the dealers were getting all the benefit. So why would the factory not want to get that? It makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I guess I hope the dealerships don't mark up beyond this the same amount they have been. I mean, the market forces will dictate that.
Yeah.
Are people going to stand for a $500,000 GT3 instead of paying that much money for an ST? I don't know.
Well, look, I mean, the naturally aspirated manual transmission car is few and far between. If you want to have that kind of experience, this is what it's going to cost. And so it's a bummer, but but it's same. It's in some ways the same. They've done lightweight packages for both the regular GT and the touring. They've tried to separate the touring a little bit. You can get a back seat. It's got the leaked bow package, which is a lightweighting package that's sort of not all the way to an ST, maybe a third or halfway to an ST. They've shortened the final drive a little bit. 8% shortened final drive.
You revise the shock valve, or not the valving, but the programming is a little bit more like the ST. So
I think
it should
for
be
the
softer.
Yeah, on the touring it should be, right?
Well, I read that the settings between the two are the same.
Oh, they are?
So it's like just like the 992.1, the wing or no wing, they feel the same. But they have taken. I mean, the ST was almost like an R&D car, and then they put. I don't know how much of the programming of those suspension systems went into these new cars, but hopefully they do ride more softly and better.
Yeah. But it looks great. I mean, it does. It looks exactly kind of like what you would hope. They're doing lithium-ion batteries, new lithium-ion battery now, which means that I'm going to have to buy a bunch more lithium-ion tenders. I can't wait to drive it. I'm sure it'll be great. I mean, if it is the same as before, but rides like the ST are closer to it, that's a good thing.
And they changed, like 100 things in little ways, and I'm sure it will add up to feeling different because they're good at that.
But they're running out of ways to improve this engine meaningfully. They've put the RS stuff on there, and they're pulling weight, and they're changing little bits. I'll be interested to see. Because this engine is now getting on, 10 years. And so it will be interesting to see what kind of life is left in it. I mean, it's a great engine, and it serves this car and the 4RS and Spider RS, et cetera, very well. Porsche obviously is not interested in pushing the displacement past 4 liters. They have their reasons for that, but I don't know if there's a lot more they can squeeze out of it. I mean, there aren't really any 4.0s out there that are making a whole lot more power than this one. So usually if they pull power past it, it's because they've punched out the displacement. But I bet it'll be nice to drive. So that is pretty exciting. Love a new GT3. And I'm sure we'll get a new... I mean, did they officially launch the Carreras? I I mean, they launched the base Carrera and the GTS at the same time. Have they officially done the new Carrera S yet? I don't think they have. I don't think. I mean, is there a new Carrera S? No more Carrera O. Oh. Renlist says that they've what? That's not right. What is that post?
This one?
Yeah, the top one. No more. When is this from? This is from July. Reading from press in Taiwan that 992.2 Carrera S is no longer in production because the performance gap are too close to each other. I don't think that's necessarily true.
Yeah, it's a forum post.
I think there will be a Carrera S starting later this year or next year. I think the Carrera S will be a lot like last year's GTS and available with a manual transmission. Should we go to the Patreon?
Yes, that's what I was just organizing a little bit because we had some.
Let's do that. The Patreon is where you can get in on the game. You can ask us questions for the show. You can watch the stream live. You can get the show before everybody else does. You get an extra show every month, and you can get a totally ad-free listening or watching experience at patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast. Not to mention, those Patreon supporters are the only real way that this show keeps going because the ad model is very rapidly dying, and supporting creators directly is just a much better model. And in fact, Brian Scotto is going to come back on the show. Did you see I put that on the calendar,
No,
Zach?
that's awesome.
He wants to go for the record. He wants to go for the radio record.
All right.
So I don't know what the longest show we've ever done was. I think it's
Probably
3 hours maybe, but I've blocked it off for 4 hours. So,
Sorry.
Right. Martin Bueno says, thoughts on the F8. Oh, see, this is why. Martin says, thoughts on the F80 and its legacy. It took me 3 times reading that question to see that he was not talking about an M3.
Yeah, the name, yeah.
All right, well, we already talked about that. And, okay. Elias says, looking for a great weekend convertible. So far, I'm looking at SL55 Mercedes, Maserati Gran Turismo S, BMW 650i or similar. Budget is $30K with $5K left over for maintenance. I would be very... These are tough. Depreciated luxury GTs. The SL55 was a great car and is now 20 plus years old. And so I don't know how they have really held up since I last looked. The Maserati Gran Turismo S seems like a pretty good value for $30,000. But $5K left over for maintenance might be a little low because those can be really expensive to fix. I don't think a BMW 650i is a great choice.
Yeah, that 5,000 is not enough.
I'd rather have, for $30K, can you get an E92 or E90 whatever M3 convertible?
Oh, let's find out. Cars and bins.
I would rather have an E92 M3 convertible than a 650 convertible. The SL55 is not bad. That's not a bad choice. That's a stout powertrain. I don't think they're like super problematic, but they do have air suspension, which could kind of scare me a little bit. I mean, you can't get a Lexus LC500 that cheap.
No. They're still
Let's
holding
see.
quite well.
Wait, okay, results. 2009.
They're all kind of here.
Yeah, dude. Here, look at this one. 2000. That's a coupe. Where's convertible?
Right here.
Oh, yes. You can absolutely get an M3 convertible for under 30 grand. 100%.
25 grand, 26 grand.
Yeah.
Rod bearings replaced.
All day.
Unmodified.
And then you've got 10 grand for maintenance.
Yeah.
I would get an M3 V8 convertible.
Yeah,
that
I
would
would
be
too.
that would be where I'm at for. I think you've got great dynamics. You've got that back seat if you need it. You've got a car with a very well supported aftermarket. You know, if you wanted to upgrade it later, the DCT is pretty good.
Yeah, it's totally
totally
livable.
fine.
Yeah, it's quick enough. They sound really good. I saw a fake E90 convertible M3 on my street. It had like, I just saw the S65 vent badge and I went, not real.
Yeah.
And then the vents on the hood were down near the headlights instead of being where they are on this car. And I walked around the back and it said M3, but the hips were all narrow. And they had 4 exhausts. Like they're lying. They're really covering their
They're
base.
convincingly lying to
lying.
people who. It's funny, like putting those vents in the wrong places. Like you could have just looked at a photo. Like you didn't even look.
Yeah.
You were like, it's got vents on the hood. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Dude. Old Rusty Bimmer, what is the best color/wrap you've seen on a Cybertruck?
A matte white somehow looked good, and I mean I think I've seen like a cool bronze one, but it didn't. I liked the wrap color. I didn't think it made it like look great. It looked better. I do think it looks better than the stainless,
Yeah.
but it doesn't like. It's a minor improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've seen like matte black. I mean, I don't really think any of them look good. I haven't seen one that I think actually really improves anything. I mean, I think the things in where those guys have polished it and it looks like chrome, I think that looks neat for like a second. I think it's super.
They polished the steel,
Yeah.
and it's even brighter.
Oh, it turns into chrome.
Oh my god!
Like it's polished. Like it looks like a
Whoa, like a
fishing
mirror.
like a fishing lure. Yeah.
Oh my god!
Look at the pictures of it. It's
At the
insane.
wrong time of day, you're gonna blind everybody.
Oh, it's so dangerous. There is a reason we don't make cars that look like this.
Oh boy.
I mean, it's very
Whoa.
sketchy. Yeah, it's extremely sketchy.
Whoa.
But like in that photo, like it does look better. Like that, I think improves it for a photo, not for something you're actually driving around.
Wow.
Yeah. Like real dangerous.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of cool. I don't think it's unsafe.
Yeah.
But as someone, whenever I drive past those fuel trucks that are very polished, and I look at my own car, and I'm like, "Wee!"
Yeah.
This would do that. It almost looks like camouflage up
Yeah.
here because it's reflecting the lawn across the street.
Totally. It almost makes and same with the one that's on the screen on the right. It looks like you're just like seeing through it. Yeah, there's a reason you shouldn't do that.
I understand why people are doing it that own the truck, and
Yeah.
I am afraid to drive next to one at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
when the sun just goes bing bing. And,
Yeah.
right.
Imagine the headlights that reflect back at you. I mean, just blind you.
Those headlights will be blinding. There's blinding headlights everywhere. I mean, there's an investigation happening, I think, in the EU about LED headlights.
Oh, really?
Like the glare, yeah.
Oh.
Because it is a global complaint. And I'm glad
I
they're
just
gonna look at that.
went to get new glasses. I'm getting progressive glasses now, which are like the ones that they're like what you used to call bifocals, but it blends.
Right.
And so I redid my prescription, which is slightly different now. But something about my eyes, like at night, it makes a little, like if I have like oncoming headlights, it makes a little bit of flare.
Oh.
It's like I think
In the glasses?
No, like in like life.
Oh, it just has a sparkly thing to it. Yeah, mine does that too.
You're from Matt's Cats. Matt, based on the recent humanoid robot idea, I suspect Elon has recently seen the movie I, Robot. Could you review your theory about how he's only seen 2 movies? Yes, he really, well, I think he's seen more movies since then, but as of like a couple of years ago, he had definitely only seen Total Recall and fucking Spaceballs. But he's clearly moved on past actual whimsical jokes into the post-apocalyptic future things. Who was it? Some comic I just saw the other day was like, how come like no movie in the future is ever like happy? Like, how come the future is like, oh, I think it might have been Mark Maron, actually, who was like, how come every movie that takes place in the future is like massively problematic? Not the movie, but like the future is fucked up. NK, thoughts on a 2021 Range Rover Sport SVR with 10,000 miles? Not a bad car, actually. Those are pretty cool. They're loud and really obnoxious, and 10,000 miles is not very much. But extended warranty, you're going to want that.
Yep.
I mean, just Range Rovers are really expensive to fix, so get an extended warranty. But dynamically, those things are pretty rad.
Yeah.
I mean, on that was the press launch where we drove on an off-road course in Monticello, drove through the trees, over some like logs and shit, some boulders, and then drove up onto this metal rack. They power washed the car. We put our helmets on and we drove straight onto the racetrack. That was neat.
Yeah, they're pretty rad.
They're pretty versatile.
Big, burly hatchback.
Pretty versatile. Colin S. Are there any cars that are good daily drivers but can do decent in autocross? I'm currently driving a Veloster N, but looking for something more comfortable for work commute. I mean, sure, right? Autocross, there's plenty of like sporty cars that do well at autocross. Like GTIs and Golf Rs do well at autocross. I mean, you're already in the right type of car. I mean, so you want to more comfortable. Does that mean you want an Elantra N?
I mean, that would kick ass in autocross.
They're good in autocross.
It's bigger than the Veloster for sure, and you're familiar with the brand.
Or
obviously.
a Civic Type R or Integra Type S. Those would be good at autocross.
GR86 would be fun. Decent daily
Probably
driver.
not more comfortable for work than the Veloster.
Yeah.
You could get, I mean, I don't know what your budget is, but a Mercedes, a GLA 45 or CLA 45, those would be good at autocross.
Yeah. Depends on the price point, right?
Yeah. I mean, dude, electric cars are good at autocross. Like a Model 3 Performance, you're always in the right gear. You've always got good torque.
That would probably smoke a lot of the other hatchback options just because of instant torque.
Dude, a Model 3 Performance with like sticky tires on it will roast things at an autocross.
That's a good point. More comfortable. Like, do you need more space? Do you want it to be soft? I mean, that's the thing. You want it to be softer. You want better seats. Ergonomically, just if you move up market, although the new Elantra N, those seats are some of the best seats I've sat in this year.
You still have to be the right size.
That's true.
But if you are the right size, they're great.
Yeah. It's a bunch of stuff.
BMW 2 Series.
You get like a 240.
Yeah, they're good. They're good at autocross. I mean, although
the turbo lag, like something with more instant power. Well, everything's turbocharged nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you want to really be good at autocross, a low electric sedan with all-wheel drive.
That would be the best for the money. That would be the best, most comfortable, best autocross car, probably. Yeah, unless you want to jump up to like a Corvette, and that's gonna be less comfortable because it'll be louder on the highway and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Lox Silber, are rolling restos dumb? Context, I've got an old BMW that's mechanically sorted and perfect. It needs paint, interior, AC, and audio. I want to do one thing at a time, and I can drive it intermittently, but there will be redundant tasks. Example, removing the cracked dash, taking the dash out and in multiple times. It's a headache. Should I drive it as is until I can afford to do everything? Well, I mean, it depends on how you value your time versus how you value the use of the car in between those tasks. If you're going to do one of those tasks a year for the next 3 years, and in the meantime you want to drive the car, like, okay. If you're okay with the car being down for 6 months and you can do all the while you're in theirs, and also like make a little spreadsheet and go, well, what do I have to take apart to get to each thing and see where it overlaps? And maybe you could do the AC, and maybe you could do the interior all together and then the exterior all together, and have 2 projects instead of like 7.
I think it just matters to me. It's like, I think rolling restos are fine. I've seen people do it successfully, and I think it's. I'm not proud of them. Like, I admire that. I respect that if people, especially if I see the progress over, weeks or months at car things. And as long as it's not your only car. Like, if you're taking the dash out of your whole thing and you gotta do the AC, like driving around with no dash and just steering column jutting out, you can. But I think that, for me, that kind of friction would make me not do that project. I go, oh, well, I need to drive it to work. Am I going to take the dash out? Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it over Christmas or something. I mean, and you could do that, budget the holiday time or whatever. But if you have a second car, I say go for it, because then you don't have to rely on this thing if it is down for 3 days.
Yeah. Unpredictability could really throw some wrenches into that one, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it was me, I'm a big fan of the while you're in there, and I would do it all together. But I'd also be paying other people to do it. And so it wouldn't just be like, well, it's annoying to take the dash out. It's I have to pay this person to take the dash out, put it back in, take it out again, put it back in. And so if it's already out and I just have to buy these different parts to put back in, I'd rather do that. Mr. Meowgi says, does something like an understated, high-powered, travel-in-style car still exist in today's market? Or does everything have to be flashy SUVs with weird body kits? I mean...
Lucid?
I think there's a lot of
I think there's
a lot of these, a lot of understated, high-powered cars. I mean, the average car has as much power as a supercar from the 80s, right? So... like, if you're talking about, I suspect what they're talking about is the personal luxury coupe, which is a genre of car that doesn't really exist so much today, right? Where you had a big coupe.
Yeah. You have to jump to sedan. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, whatever.
Two-door, big engine, travel in style by yourself.
I mean, yeah, they have some of those. I mean, I don't know about understated, because I think that people who buy big coupes do want something that looks good, like an LC500 or a Mercedes, an SL or an AMG GT. I mean, so how understated are we really talking?
Yeah, I think the LC and the SL are the most understated of things available today. I think the Lucid is even more subtle, but it's a four-door car. But beyond that, that's just a sign of one. We need more air in the front end. Like grills, BMW's out of its mind. But most cars have larger grills, so that means there's larger things. The headlights have gotten bigger. Like everything has gotten a little bit more extreme and a little bit less subtle, just because of the hardware that's underneath those things. But then, of course, there are some companies that go real aggressive, and they want you to, like the XM or the X5, like they want you to notice that car as soon as it's coming down the road.
Yeah,
I think Mercedes is a little bit more subtle, even with those larger grills.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely understated fast stuff out there, like the Audi RS6. Sure. Or this is not a drive impression, because I could say this about the last one too, because I drove it in Spain, the new one. The Audi RS Q8, which is in most ways an Urus, but it looks, fairly normal.
Right.
Certainly, I mean, the BMW M5. I just saw an M5 yesterday that was like it was from the last 2 years, but it was like a pretty low equipment one. It didn't have big flashy wheels. It wasn't a competition. And at first I didn't notice that it was an M5. I mean, it would look just like a 5 Series with the little vent on the side. And it was only when I went, oh, it is an M5, because it was like a subtle build. So like that. I mean, Panameras.
That's a pretty stealthy way to be fast and get around.
I mean, a black Panamera. I mean, yes, there's some parts of America where you won't see a lot of Panameras, but in a major metro area, a Panamera is not something that people are looking at twice.
Yeah.
Or the Audi S8. They still make the fucking S8.
I didn't know that. I just don't look at it. We don't get tests of them.
When was the last time you saw an S8? Like, never.
And I would not call the Panamera or the Cayenne or like flashy. I think they try to do things.
Yeah.
And their design language is very smooth and organic.
Yeah. I mean, you could spec one that's kind of flashy, but they could be understated for sure. Joe Curran says the $1 Million Mile Lexus restoration was just finished. Do you have plans to do a video with it? I I don't know that it's that it's finished. I know they were getting there. I follow those guys on Instagram. Is it actually, if it's actually done? I mean, Freddie said that when it was done and they had finished the content, that he would sell it back to me for the same $1 that I sold it to him.
Let me see.
So it wasn't Freddie that was doing the actual work on it. Freddie's like buddy, who I unfortunately cannot remember the name of right now, has another channel and was like a Lexus tech.
LC. Okay, so 2 days ago, a guy named LC's World. It says the tagline says, in this episode, the Million Mile Lexus is completed, parentheses, maybe, and taken for a test drive.
Okay, so they're getting there.
Yeah.
This was a project, but Freddie told me that the engine was in amazing shape. They had to reseal the engine because it was like leaking oil and some of the seals were bad. But he said like the engine internals like didn't need anything.
Wow, great!
Which is
such
awesome.
a good engine.
So I mean that was the plan. The plan was that when they finished it, that I would buy it back for $1 and then maybe drive it back here, which could be fun.
Yeah, great.
It would be nice to have that thing back.
That thing's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, we could race that versus the Bentley.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a fun one. So yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I hope that I get to buy it back for $1 when it's done. I don't
know who this is.
I know who this question is about, but I don't. I don't. Sorry for those not understanding what I'm doing right now. I'm reading a question that's asking about a tuning shop in California. What's the deal with? And the honest truth is, I don't follow whatever it is that they're doing, so I don't have an answer. Sam England says, for the people who say the GT3 RS makes a good daily and street car, what drugs are they on? Had the opportunity to drive one for a day in the Black Forest in Germany last week. It's a monster, but very harsh. Give me a GTS any day of the week over that thing.
Correct.
That's what we said in our video.
Yep. I
mean, that car, I drove it in the canyon, not just the day that we filmed, which was in the wet, but I led a drive of our WCCS members with it, 150-mile canyon drive. I was so tired at the end of that drive. That car beat me up so bad. I think the people who say that car is a good daily or street car, I think some of them have confirmation bias. They buy one, they spend a lot of money, they spec it out just how they like it. It shows up, and maybe it's not as bad to them as they heard us say. You know, okay, they're not as tired by it as us. All right, fine. Maybe their frame of reference is last year's GT3 RS, and compared to that, it's not that much worse. But I think that's not a car I'd want to own as a street car.
No, I thought it was way too stiff to drive around on the street. You know, and even in the canyons, unless you're on the smoothest canyon in the world, racetrack glass smooth, you're going to feel a lot of the little bumps.
Yeah.
And I found it annoying, which is why the ST got so much praise.
Yeah.
Because it was better at driving on normal roads.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think people just, it's the hot thing, and people want to. No one wants to admit either. There's a bunch of things. Like if you say it's too stiff, half the crowd will probably say that you're weak.
Yeah.
And that's dumb. I mean, when we said it was too stiff, Johnny, I remember him going like, "You guys are idiots." Like, all right, well that's what you like. We don't like it.
Yeah.
We both think it's too stiff. And maybe if your ratio of driving is mostly canyon and fun shit, and you just go, yeah, you put up with it on the street, but it is a bouncy thing.
Yeah. Here's one for Zach. Arun P. Would it be a bad idea to daily an E46 M3, 25 to 30,000? Already has a BRZ for a daily, but he wants the BRZ to only be a track day car. Work from home wouldn't be a true commuter daily, 100 miles a week. I don't see a problem with that.
No, I think it'd be great.
Save some maintenance money.
Right.
But if he's got another car, backup car.
Backup car's good. I really like the car. Is comfortable. It's a good size. It's usable. It's smooth and quiet on the highway. It is a really good kind of do everything car. Hopefully, you drive it more than just like stop and go traffic errands, because the thing really shines in twisty roads and like touring stuff. But yeah, you're not really dailying it. You're weekending it. That's the right thing to do with the car. When I dailied the car, more things broke. And I started to lament owning it because I was like, all I'm doing is sitting in stop and go traffic. I should get a fucking Volt. But now that I'm not doing that anymore because I can walk or bike to work, I don't have those thoughts anymore. So I say go for it.
Break Diego Break. I don't know the essence of the username, but that's good. Or the history of it, but that's good. Congrats to Zach and Sarah, if you're comfortable sharing. When did you each know you found the one? First boner.
What? I don't know. I think it just. It just built over time. But we the first week we met, the way we were talking to each other, people thought we had known each other for years, and we said, no, we met 3 days ago, and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. So that was definitely telling.
Yeah. Pugs and Porsches, I want to find a fun daily driver with 3 pedals that my wife can learn to drive stick on. Any suggestions on the best way to teach her? Start with my videos. I have 3 how to drive stick videos.
Yep. They
are helpful. But then do it like they've been doing it since back in the day. Find a big parking lot and do it. I mean, do by doing. And the real way to do by doing is once you get through that first lesson that's like a half hour or so, make sure that she keeps driving that,
Yes.
You got to like get out of your head and do that first lesson and then like make her drive that car every day all the time for like 2 weeks and then you'll be good.
Yep.
Oh man. John Spartan 442. Good username. I'm driving my dune buggy from Orange County to Palm Springs one morning this November. What kind of silly balaclava would you recommend to entertain the masses and keep my noggin from freezing in the chilly morning? Oh, that's a good one. I can't believe I'm saying this, but actually a full face helmet will really do the job.
Yeah.
So maybe you get one of those helmet covers that makes you look like a dinosaur. Or something.
Yeah, like Pikachu or one of those funny things. Yeah, stunt riders like to wear those things.
Yeah,
but helmet will it'll knock down the wind noise, which is great, and it protects you from anything.
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
Yeah, I know it doesn't seem cool to wear a helmet in a dune buggy, but it actually will serve the function that you need. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Watch question. Okay. Too soon, Junior. This one's also for Zach. I own an E36 M3 and an S2000. What other cars that Matt hates are actually good and should I buy?
Anything from the 60s.
Sure. Yeah.
There's plenty of good, fun stuff. Anything that's really old, that's muscle cars Matt thinks are so stupid.
Yeah, old junk. SUVs from the 80s.
Oh, back when they were all noise, no power?
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. How do you feel about, like, big Blazers? Like C10 stuff.
The only Blazer I like, I'm not into the big, like, K5 Blazers. The Blazer that I like is actually the two-door Tahoe, which was basically
90s.
Yeah, the end of that. They think they called that a Blazer for a minute, but then it became Tahoe GT or something like that. It was the two-door. I like the two-door Tahoe.
What else?
I don't hate the S2000. I don't hate the E46 M3. I can't fit in an S2000 properly, but I respect it. And the E36 M3 is universally agreed that it's built like shit.
Yeah,
but they're fun to drive.
It is the worst generation of M3 for sure.
Are there any other cars that I hate but are actually good?
Well, what do you usually hate? You hate things you can't fit in, but that's an ergonomic thing. That's not like.
I don't hate 996s or first gen Boxsters. I don't love them.
They're just unattractive outside and inside.
Yeah,
they drive great. They're fine.
Hate
F-body Camaros? You don't really like those?
Yeah,
Those are
I
good.
don't
And
like
those are-
F-body Camaros.
Those are objectively, they're fast. You can mod
Yes.
them. You can make them handle well.
Yes,
And
they go fast and turn.
They go fast and they sound good.
And they sound good,
So you
yeah.
get an F-body Camaro.
Yeah,
That's the good version of a
cars
60s
that
car.
I hate cars that have really poor build quality. That's the
You love Fox body Mustangs, Matt.
that's the only one, and it's pure nostalgia.
You love DeLoreans, Matt Farah.
I don't anymore now that I've owned one. I did. Yeah, I don't like cars that have lots of plastic that are built like shit.
What is the interior of your Countach made of? Just asking
Leather.
for a friend.
It's all
What's
leather.
underneath the leather?
I don't know.
Oh, you
I've
don't
never-
like plastic you can touch. Okay.
Yeah, I don't like plastic like buttons
Yeah,
and shit.
fair,
Like fucking like the GM injection molded interiors and stuff.
Early 2000s Pontiacs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no. Unless it's the one with all the buttons on the steering wheel. That's a good time.
What about like the Formula Firehawk, WS6 Firebird? That's an F-body,
respect
but
it.
cooler
Yeah,
looking.
respect it. I'd rather the end of the previous generation Firebird than an F-body Firebird. I'd rather like a 92 Firebird Formula.
Really?
Yeah.
What engine is in that slow thing?
350, but you'd change it. You'd put a LS7 in or something.
Okay.
I don't like them out of the box.
I still want one of those dumb the WS6 that had like giant.
Yeah, it had like
nostrils.
8 scoops on it, like a dragon.
It looks
yeah.
like an elephant trunk.
I mean, have you seen the one we have at South Bay? We've got the cleanest IROC and the cleanest 91 Firebird you've ever seen in your life. Both like fire truck red, and both I'm like, yep, would fuck with those. I actually definitely would. Back in the day, I would have never touched a fucking IROC. You show me a nice IROC with like proper chassis upgrades and an LS motor, and I'm in the game now. I like an IROC.
All right, but I'm trying to compare stock for stock.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not. Big Ben says, while cleaning out my cabinets, I found a 12-inch blue neon tube light from 20 years ago. I had them shits under my Subaru. I'm seriously considering installing it in the footwell of my F80. See? Another one. I thought he was going to put that in his Ferrari supercar. Are you garbage? Yes.
Well, that.
Neon is no good.
But yeah, also if you just want blue lights in your interior, just get LEDs.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. They're
Yeah.
cheaper. They're easier to install.
Yeah,
If
we
you're-
don't need neon anymore.
Yeah, you don't.
Okay, let's.
These are the last three.
Okay. Bad Gardener, what cars have huge premiums in later or early years of production runs? Well, this needs to be divided out like certain ways, right? Like there's often a variant where, like the E46, where like a CSL was only for the last 2 years, and those have big premiums. But like it's rare that like just the same car that they made for 10 years will have a huge premium on one versus the other.
992.2 GT3s.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, like, here's, like, Acura NSXs, NA1s and NA2s. The values seem to be based on the production numbers, which were the highest between 91 and 94, and then slowly trickled off. Same thing for the Nissan GTR R35. Inexplicably, an R35 from 2021 is still worth a ton of money. Why? Because they sold like 100 cars. So it's just a numbers game. Whereas you have Countach's. The early cars tend to be worth more, sometimes because they're of the lower production numbers, other times because people like the, quote, pure earlier design without the flares and the wings. So there's times when the car evolved from a more, quote, pure design to the later design, and people like the pure earlier design. 356s, early 911s, Panteras, Countach's, 308s and 328s are good examples of that. And then there's other times where production went down towards the end, and so low volume drove high prices, like the GTR or the NSX.
It's like BMW 2002s, the eras where the rear lights were round or worth more money, and then they went square, and it was like, oh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there could be ones like that too. Other ones like where stuff that crossed over where the impact bumpers came in. Like Lamborghini Espada Series 3s, the last ones are rarer because they had impact bumpers and people didn't want impact bumpers. Now,
wait, but are those worth more money because they're
no,
more rare?
that's
Right,
the irony is they're rarer but not more desirable.
Yeah, they're worse.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but you might be able to, if you were restoring one, remove the impact bumpers and blah, blah, blah. Like my Countach had a fucking weird ass US spec bumper on the back that was removed at some point, which I get. All right. Last one. Christian says, my mom wants a plug-in hybrid crossover. She likes the X3, but it's not a hybrid. She wants it I don't know about lightly used. I mean, my mom has a Q5 hybrid. It sounds exactly like what your mom is looking for.
Yeah.
Has an A4, loves Audi. You want a Q5 hybrid.
Yeah, do that.
Get that.
Perfect.
I mean, my mom literally has a Q5 hybrid and loves it.
And Lexus also makes there's a Lexus version of the RAV4 hybrid, which I think is the NX.
The NX.
And it will also serve this person's mom perfectly. So she should just test drive both of those.
Yeah, that's definitely what you want. All right, that's our show today. We'll figure out what happened with Simon and circle back with him later. Thank you to our patrons for such good questions today. We appreciate it. Do check out from your local library or buy it if you're interested in the topic, Autonomy by Peter Nelson, even though it is 4 years old almost. There's absolutely nothing in it that does not apply to what's happening today, and it's good to remember. I really like I like studying our history where I can, because I feel like so much of the fucking flim-flam bullshit that served us today is so dependent on people not remembering that this stuff has been served up exactly the same over and over throughout the history of our country and humanity and whatever. And so it's interesting to go back and read that shit. And I'll have a book report on his next book soon. Actually, his next book came first, but Fighting Traffic, which I hear is really good. Thanks, guys. See you later.